What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and the Sony shenanigans are nowhere near ending, and according to various sources, they are not only allegedly lying to customers, but doubling down in the future as imminent key releases loom on the PC player horizon. Beyond this, there's annoying retroactive virtue signaling going on with things like Dungeons & Dragons, as well as a prominent YouTuber who says that Resident Evil 5 is racist. Oh boy, not again, but first, let's speak on Helldivers. You likely already know the whole situation surrounding Sony and Helldivers. In case you don't, short version is Sony attempted to strong-arm the Helldivers PC community into creating Sony PlayStation accounts in order to access the game. They were giving the player base a month until this would all become mandatory, but the backlash was so nuclear that Sony backtracked and said you would not need a PSN account in order to play Helldivers on PC. The aftermath of this situation saw review bombing being reversed, the community manager Spitz getting fired for encouraging players to negatively review bomb the game in order to send a message. And in general, it seemed like a win for PC players. Need I remind you that around 80% of Helldivers 2's entire player base is on PC. So restricting and losing the trust of those players is obviously paramount to the continued success of Helldivers. Well, now more information has come to light, and fellas, it's not looking good. As Niche Gamer here reports, Helldivers 2 is still effectively banned in countries without PSN. Fans are crying out that despite Sony saying they are reversing the requirement of PSN account linking for Helldivers, it doesn't actually seem to be the case at all. Places like Belarus, Cuba, and the entirety of Africa, for example, do not have access to Helldivers 2 in any capacity still. And actually, if you go look at the Steam database, you can find an entire list of countries that are still unable to purchase and play the game. And as you can see on screen, that's a lot of countries, fellas, which means a lot of money is being left on the table as well. Over 100 countries are barred access from playing the game still. So what gives? One user named Pirate Software, who brought this all to light, had something to say on this. Here's what they said via Twitter. The Helldivers 2 community was tricked by Sony. Sony declared having a PSN account would be mandatory to play Helldivers 2. The community revolted and trashed the game's review score to 13% positive. Sony walked it back and stated they wouldn't be making PSN mandatory. Declaring victory, the community undid the massive wave of negative reviews, yet Sony did something sinister in the background. They restricted Helldivers 2 from being purchased in all 177 countries where PSN isn't available. They fooled you, and the devs are still fighting to fix it. They continue further down by saying, for those claiming these two actions were not associated and trying to community note me, Sony restricted sales at 10 o'clock UTC on May 4th and sent out the notice of walking back the PSN requirement at 4 o'clock UTC on May 6th. These actions were 30 hours apart. The wave of downvotes started on May 3rd and continued until Sony announced the PSN requirement was dropped on May 6th. You can review this in the package information and via Steam's customer reviews tool. So it seems, even though Sony has said you can play Helldivers without a PSN account or anything, they haven't actually been good on their word. And in reality, you still can't play the game if you're not within the 69 countries that PSN operates within right now. Which then begs the question, if Sony isn't done pushing this PSN implementation going forward for not only Helldivers but other games as well. We do know that Ghost of Tsushima is coming soon to PC, and there's been many conflicting reports regarding that game's PSN account linking. Some websites have been saying that you do need a PSN account to access the game altogether, while others are saying that you don't. Then you have users like this, for example, stating they couldn't buy the game because Ghost was allegedly region locked. But it seems like this region lock they're talking about is specifically tied to a certain seller of PC keys called the Green Man Gaming. Whereas if you buy the game via Steam directly, this doesn't seem to be an issue. The point being here is that we have many websites running these articles saying that Ghost is trying to pull a Helldivers 2 situation, but it isn't true, yet anyway. You can still buy the game via Steam directly, and it's already been confirmed by developer Sucker Punch that a PSN account is only needed to play Legends, the multiplayer mode. But the single player is completely fine and available without a PSN account. Obviously, the game is the single player. And Legends is just a free add-on release that was post-launch, so don't feel discouraged by this is what I'm saying. And if some websites try to pull a console war gotcha on you by saying you do need a PSN account, it's likely not true. As of the making of this video anyway, since Ghost isn't yet out for PC. But I think Sony would be moronic to destroy an easy slam dunk like Ghost with something that could be so easily avoidable. And of course, as I was writing this video, even more information has come out, and now it seems like Helldivers is doubling down on limiting more countries. And Ghost of Tsushima is also doing the same apparently. Pirate Software had a lot to add in this conversation, so here's more of what they showed. Apparently, just recently, Helldivers 2 has added countries like Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia as places that are also unable to purchase the game either. This was added 7 minutes ago to the Steam page. Well, likely hours later once you've seen this, but you get what I mean. I'm reacting to this in real time. Now Ghost of Tsushima has been updated as well, and it looks like all of these countries listed below are unable to purchase the game either. Places like Algeria, Serbia, and even Japan of all places? How does that even make any sense? Someone at Sony has got to have some twisted sense of humor. How the hell is Japan not able to buy a game that's based on historical events within their own country? I know Sony has to update stuff when they release in Japan due to microtransaction policies, which technically the Legends multiplayer does have those, but this is obviously a step way too far. The pendulum is swinging wildly right now. And again, I should reiterate, this Steam database page is saying these countries cannot buy the game. Not countries incompatible to play the Legends multiplayer, the entire game, single player too. I think Sony is likely doubling down on the PSN thing no matter what it seems. Because obviously Steam's database would not be listing these countries if it was just a multiplayer mode, so this is clearly very shady. I think Sony is shooting themselves in the foot here, and they're gonna run into another Helldivers situation. However, the difference there at least was the controversy happened after people bought the game and had it for a month or two. This sort of screw up this early into Ghost's presence on PC could really mess up their day one sales to even a week and more. This is a bad move on Sony's part, man. This will not end well. Also, Sony's stock has dropped 12.32% as I'm writing this as well, which I'm not good at math, but even I know that ain't a good thing to be happening. This is what happens when you push this stuff. You suffer. Is it really worth it, Sony? Oh great, now The Gamer is reporting on this too with their article, Ghost of Tsushima PC port delisted in countries without PSN access. So this news is obviously starting to get into the mainstream. Well, that can't be good. Even this other article, The Gamer, says that Sony can't afford to screw up their Helldivers situation, and they're right. This whole thing is unfortunate, and I mean all of this happening and Ghost releases on May 16th. That's like a week away at this point. What is Sony doing? The Gamer said they reached out to Sony and Sucker Punch, but neither came to give any comments. Well, that's also not very good. And let's not forget about the future of other releases on PC and how this situation can become replicated yet again with another big PlayStation release in the future. God of War Ragnarok apparently will also be announced soon for PC, as there's lots of rumors of a PlayStation showcase just around the corner. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets announced for PC, since obviously the 2018 game also hit Steam eventually too. Although it will be interesting to see if people do show up for Ragnarok, because it is a sweet baby product after all. Although the implementation of their agenda is mostly just tied to the character of Angrboda, who shows up primarily for one section of the game where you play as Atreus. And that section is by far the worst part of Ragnarok's entire story and everything else. And it's because the game's story and everything crawls to a standstill as you're forced to listen to these two talk as they slowly wander through the forest and swamp around Angrboda's home. It's so boring. And obviously Angrboda being the only black character in the entire game sticks out like a sore thumb, especially within Ragnarok's world, since Norse mythology characters are white because they're based on Nordic people. And then all of a sudden, here's this small black girl, but like I said, since Sweet Baby was directly involved, this change was absolutely done deliberately in order to implement some diversity into a game that didn't need it to begin with due to its setting. But I think Angrboda will be a long-time chess play of Sweet Baby, since if her and Atreus end up together, you'll have a new main character eventually that meets those diversity requirements these studios are so hell-bent and obsessive about. Would I recommend boycotting Ragnarok? I mean, objectively, it is a pretty good game. I don't think it was an amazing game personally. I did 100% it, mostly because I did it with a 2018 game too, but personally, the 2018 God of War is a much better game in terms of story and themes. That's not to say that Ragnarok is bad or anything, but for me anyways, it was a disappointing sequel that didn't utilize its rich lore and setting enough to its advantage. But it is fun to play, that's for sure, although the story itself is not amazing in my opinion. And the forced Atreus sections are definitely some of the weaker parts of the game, not to mention the fact that you can't skip the cutscenes due to how they're integrated into the game's story and world. But the game is fun to play, exploration is good too. Just don't go into it expecting a masterpiece or anything, but again, that's just what I think personally. But it is a Sweet Baby product technically, so I'm interested to see how it performs when it inevitably gets announced. Although I think Ragnarok is kind of like Spider-Man 2, where the brand is just so prominent and well known that it will likely sell well regardless of controversies. Which is what Sweet Baby is likely banking on. Hopefully Santa Monica Studios doesn't get SBI involved with the next God of War entry. Because if they do, it could lead to a really unfortunate situation that will likely not end well for Sony or Santa Monica. Considering how expensive games like God of War are to make to begin with, it would be in their best interest to not self-sabotage themselves like that for pathetic woke brownie points. But the Helldivers situation is still unfortunate because even though Sony has said they'll revert it, it still doesn't seem like that's the case. I don't really believe that Sony will completely abandon the integration of PSN when it comes to PC in the future. Because objectively, there's far too many users on PC they could technically take advantage of when it comes to signups that the positives likely outweigh the negatives for them in the long run. If I had to guess, it's likely that Sony just makes the PSN account creation process painless and very easy to do. And while they may have backtracked with Helldivers for now, I would wager they will eventually find a way to creep the integration back in slowly over time. Especially now that Xbox is effectively up in smoke and is apparently now being called Microsoft Gaming, which is yes a real thing by the way. Seems like the Xbox name as a brand is all but dead now going forward, and the Sony PlayStation we're seeing now is reminding me of the Sony back in the PS3 days, when they were very cocky and thought they could do no wrong but ended up obviously doing a lot of things very wrong. Like attempting to push their rigid way of doing things as the de facto way. Remember that they made the PS3 notoriously hard to develop for, especially when it came to cross-platform gaming. Obviously they remedied that with the PS4 onward, but it still shows that a cocky Sony is a bad thing for the industry. And I think with all the success Sony has with quality titles, it's only a matter of time before they screw up again with something big. I just hope they realize that their position as an industry leader can be destroyed by 1,000 smaller moronic decisions too. And I think the Helldivers situation is proof that you can't piss away customers' goodwill for some boost in analytics like this. Because more than ever before, the audience is better informed and much more powerful in their unified responses. I hope Sony restores the game to those 100+ countries very soon, and I hope stuff like Ghost of Tsushima and Ragnarok don't end up wavering and going down a similar path of backlash when they really don't have to in the first place. But what do you think about all of that? Let me know. And now, let's talk about Dungeons & Dragons of all things. From Bounding Into Comics, we have this article titled, Wizards of the Coast purposely and clearly gender swaps warrior featured on Dungeons & Dragons red box cover art. In yet another moronic move on Wizards' part, they are now attempting to gaslight fans into believing that Dungeons & Dragons was also a female-forward brand instead of male. According to the company, the 1983 Dungeons & Dragons Red Box set, which is legendary for that franchise, features a woman on the cover and not a man. The artwork is legendary and it was done by Larry Elmore, and the Red Box art is easily considered to be one of the most iconic D&D pieces of art that was ever made. It features a man with long hair fighting a dragon, but yeah, apparently that is now a woman all along according to Wizards. This was confirmed by Wizards in their upcoming D&D Icons of the Realm 50th Anniversary set, which comes with 70 new miniatures in the set, 10 secret figurines, and also 60 standard ones. One of these figurines is labeled the Red Box Warrior, who's in the same design and position as the one in the iconic artwork. But when you look at the figurine, it's very clearly a muscular woman instead of a man, which in a lot of ways feels like the Warhammer female custodes nonsense all over again. D&D is trying to repurpose the past and rewrite it to fit new agendas. However, following this announcement, Larry Elmore, who made the artwork all those years ago, took to Facebook to clarify whether what D&D was doing here was legitimate, or just another case of virtue signaling. Here's what he said, and I quote, I recently was asked a question about the Ancient Red painting I did for the cover of the Red Box edition. Did you paint a male or female? It's a man. Gary didn't know what he wanted. All he wanted was something simple that would jump out at you. He wanted a male warrior. If it was a woman, you would know it, for I'm pretty famous for painting women. For this specific painting, while I hide the face of the warrior so it is anonymous, it was painted as a man. You can interpret it however you want, for that is the magic of art, but I am answering a question that was asked without context. Just to be clear, the thing that I love about D&D was that anyone can be anything in this game. Male, female, both, neither. It does not discriminate. It's a game of imagination and you can be and do whatever you want. End quote. So as you can see, we're having yet another company trying to retroactively change things in order to fit agendas. I hate it here, man, I really do. Why couldn't they just create new artwork and characters instead? Obviously it's because this gacha could be viewed as a girl power moment. But in reality, it's more eye-roll worthy than anything else. All these sorts of changes will do is annoy your customer base and cause them to not want to support you in the future. This is like if Marvel retroactively told you that the Spider-Man that bit Peter Parker in the original comics was actually non-binary. Like, just shut up and stop being an idiot, guys. Seriously, all this pointless virtue signaling is just making your legacies worse. And if the original artist is saying otherwise, that's who I'll believe. Larry Elmore said it's a man, so it's a man. I get keeping the identity ambiguous because D&D is all about putting yourself into the game and whatnot, but besides that, these companies should respect the creator's original vision. But who are we kidding? It's 2024 now, so that isn't allowed anymore. Now let's get to this other stupid story that is more annoying than anything else. So you probably know the YouTuber Jacksepticeye. To be real with you, I don't think I've ever watched a single video of his, but I know he's been popular on YouTube for a while. I have no ill will towards the guy, I wish him all the best. However, he also apparently agrees with games journalists that Resident Evil 5 is too racist to remake. Here's a clip of what he had to say.
I don't think they're ever going to remake Resi 5 because of the obvious racial conflict that's happening in that game, and I think it would be completely stupid. The game has not aged well in terms of who you're fighting. So they would have to just fundamentally change what the game is.
Don't you love white guilt, fellas? I too should be appalled to say that I enjoyed playing Resident Evil 5. Especially because it apparently has racial conflict in it, except not at all. Did Jack even play Resident Evil 5, or is he just reading too many games journalist articles lately? Resi 5 is not about racial conflict at all. It's about two special ops people fighting a virus in Africa and trying to track down who spread the virus. That's it. There's no racial conflict of any kind. Of course, Jack probably meant because Chris is a white guy shooting black zombies, I guess? But then wouldn't Resi 4 be racist too? I mean, you're shooting Spanish people in that one. And they're alive during modern day, yet they live like medieval peasants with crossbows and torches. Is Resi 4 saying Spanish people aren't technologically advanced? So is that game racist because you're Leon who's also white? This is all so stupid. I hate all this let's change things we deem problematic due to white guilt crap people keep doing these days. Resident Evil 5 is not racist, and if Capcom changes the game's narrative or location in a remake, people will boycott the crap out of Capcom for that. I just find it insane that you can shoot white zombies all day and nobody bats an eye. But as soon as a zombie skin color is black, suddenly everybody starts yelling racial injustices. Whoever thinks Resident Evil 5 is too racist for a remake, you're stupid. I don't want to debate you on it, but I want you to know that you're a dummy. You probably eat crayons for breakfast, you need to stop getting offended by everything. Seriously. Whether it's changing D&D characters to be women all along or scoring brownie points and saying that black zombies is racist, all of that is stupid. If you bend to all of these whims, you're going to end up with the most sanitized, boring game industry imaginable where nobody can say anything or do whatever because it's all too problematic. If you want black representation in games, guess what? That should be equally distributed among heroes, villains, or cannon fodder enemies like every other race in history has done. It's not racist to shoot anybody in whatever game, especially a survival horror where weird worm things take over people's bodies. Like, come on, man. You're not going to be asking a zombie what their pronouns are if they support Black Lives Matter. You're too busy making sure you don't die, so just shoot them and have fun. It's a video game, it's not that deep. God, I hate it here sometimes, I really do. As for the Helldivers Ghost of Tsushima problem, Sony needs to figure themselves out, man, they really do. They either have to stick to PlayStation only or accept the fact that they cannot enact their policies and rules 100% onto another platform they so obviously do not own, like Steam. PC players are not PlayStation players, they're PC players, it's in their name. Respect their boundaries, just sell your games and make your millions, it could all be so easy, but no. Instead you decide time and again to do really stupid things more often than not. I swear to God, if they do the same thing with Ragnarok, I'm going to be really disappointed in Sony. Just let people enjoy things and make your money and leave them alone. Why is that so hard for these companies to do? But as always, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks to my patrons for their support, and like, comment, subscribe, and all that other nonsense. Have a wonderful day, enjoy some gaming, and I'll see you in the next one.